Welcome, everybody. I had a really great time meeting with your teenagers earlier today. They are fabulous individuals. As you're noticing, this looks pretty different than what you're used to seeing. The reason is we are recording this and preparing it for placing it on YouTube later. So because of that, the teen seminar was recorded earlier. And if you're curious about what we talked about during that session, you can actually go back and watch it on YouTube. It will be uploaded at the same time as this one. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Number one, every statistic I'm going to share with you today, all of the studies will be linked in the description box on the YouTube channel. Every resource that I mention today or every video or link that I share with you will also be in that description box. This is designed so that those who are watching later or listening in while they're driving around town or cleaning the house, it's kind of meant to be an easy follow along, listen, learn information while you work situation. So there's going to be fewer intensive slides, but the information will still be the same. Our objectives for meeting today in this next hour that we have together is to help us understand why teaching healthy sexuality matters. I also want to share a little bit about my own experience with developing self-mastery and how I've taught it to my own children. I also want to spend some time touching on teaching about tech safety and creating a tech plan in our home, the different levels of pornography exposure and why they're important to helping our kids understand sexual self-mastery. And then we're going to review some ideas on how to teach healthy sexuality from ages 2 to 20. And we're just going to go through the different age groups and some different resources that are available there. You will notice the QR code. Please scan it. It will send you to a Google link for just a Google Doc where you can write an anonymous question. The last several minutes of our class, I'm going to reserve for answering your questions. So if something comes to mind during any part of this seminar, you can just simply put your question there. Remember to keep them anonymous and respectful in verbiage. We don't want to be calling anyone out while we're all together, and certainly not all over the internet. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to share with you a little bit about my own personal story. So I, growing up, was very curious about sexuality. And when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, interest in sexuality or sexual curiosity was always touted as something that the boys needed to be talked to about, but not really addressed with the girls. And because of that, I just felt like a total outcast every time they were like, well, this isn't a girl issue. This is just for boys. That was outside of my home. Thankfully, inside my home, I was raised by parents who were very open and honest about how awesome sexuality was. They would say that sex isn't bad, sex isn't dirty, sex is so good, it's worth waiting for. That was their attitude about it. They were very affectionate and loving in their relationship, and they also always welcomed our questions. And there was nothing that was taboo. It was very normal to have a discussion about sex around the kitchen table. Terms were properly used. Their beliefs about sexuality was openly discussed. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so we have some very beautiful doctrine about families, sexuality, the divinity of sex and marriage. And so all of those things were taught to me and shared with me. And as I was struggling with my own curiosity and issues with self-mastery, my parents were there to help me as I figured things out. I realized as I got older how rare this was. And it made me desire to be not only very open with my own children in preparing them, but to make sure I was open in lots of settings with religious groups, friend groups, community groups about my willingness to talk about it. That has led to this business, Uncommon Sense, where over the years I have been able to help families and individuals, teens, couples who are getting married, Parents who are worried about their kids, just figure out how to navigate having these conversations, because for a lot of people, it's very, very uncomfortable. Now, clearly, I don't just focus on sexuality, but it is a major focus because it's a very important part about being a person. So, yeah, that's what led us here today. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted us to start with the current trends. Let's just go over some of the issues facing our kids today that were not things that we had to deal with when we were kids. So, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, pornography is not just a boy issue. Sexual curiosity is not just a boy issue. So, it is true that when they interview kids and teenagers about porn issues, yes, more boys are using it more frequently. But if you're going off of just kind of exposure or interest, 75% of boys and 70% of girls, that's not that big of a gap. So, as parents, you don't, it's a dangerous attitude to have to say, I'm just going to talk to my boys about this. Teaching healthy sexuality is important for all of our children. You will find in your own home and in your friendships and relationships you have with everybody, our sexuality is a very personal and wonderful thing. It's unique to us. I've known women who have very high sex drives and men who have very low sex drives. I've known kids of both genders who have a high or low curiosity about sex as they're going through puberty and developing sexual self-mastery. So please do not just pigeonhole this in one gender. If you are a person, if you are a child who is growing up to be an adult, if you are raising children, you need to teach them about sexuality, you need to teach them about puberty, you need to teach them about maturation, you need to teach them about sexual self-mastery. Just like we teach our kids about riding a bike, being a good friend, being honest, why school matters, how to take care of their body and eat healthy food, we also need to teach about healthy sexuality. So please don't discriminate in this regard. This is just something that needs to be taught in our homes, and it can't just be a one-time conversation. I am teaching this seminar from Utah, and so it is important to understand the sexting laws. So if you're 18 or older and you are found sending or receiving sexual images on your device, you are charged as possessing child pornography, and you will be placed on the child or on the sex offender registry, and you will never get off of it. Why am I bringing this up? Obviously, laws change over time, but as of 2026, if you have a teenager who turns 18 while they're still in high school and they are texting inappropriate images among their peers and friends, and those images are found on their device, that sex registry listing of theirs will be there for the rest of their lives. That means they will never be able to enter their child's school. They will never be able to have, their kids can never have friends over. It will follow them forever. I know that sexting is a huge issue in our communities, and not the other communities, not us. It's happening in our wards, our communities, our neighborhoods, our religious groups, everywhere. It is one of the major reasons why I do not allow my children to have a cell phone until they turn 16. I didn't want them to be forced into some of these very adult situations when they have absolutely no way of handling them yet. We talk about sexting long before they turn 16, but it's one of the reasons, and they're fine with it, why they don't have a phone yet. They don't want to be dealing with these issues either. One of the other major trends that's happening right now is that fewer and fewer adults are having sex. They're not connecting sexually. It's just becoming more and more of an issue over time, with pornography being the most prevalent thing online. Everyone is substituting that for actual genuine connection. I mean, it's a lot easier to turn to pornography and an AI bot that will love you forever and want to connect with you sexually, I don't know, digitally, than having to deal with a real person with real issues, working on real relationships. Obviously, that's where the most satisfaction, completeness, and joy comes, in those types of healthy relationships in the real world, and fewer people are accessing that. Let's also talk a little bit about the impact of AI and other issues on this digital landscape. So I have to do a training every year through Granite School District, and these issues cannot be ignored. The negative impact that social media is having on our children, the sex trafficking that is happening as adults are posing as kids to connect with other kids. And that can be in chat rooms, that can be online games, that can be through social media. Time and time again, you have these adult predators posing as younger children, boys or girls, to try and meet up with and have inappropriate relationships with children. That has to be on your radar. So one of the rules at our house is you can't play video games with people online if you don't know them in the real world. And my younger kids can't have any access to associating with people online with a headset or anything. It isn't worth it. We also don't have social media on our phones. To each their own. That's just a rule that we've made. One of the big reasons now that we don't have social media on our phones is that people are now using images from social media to create AI pornography. So they will take images of small children or teenagers from their social media accounts and use those images to create pornography that they're now posting on different sites. I don't want my kids' faces online. I don't want that to even be a thing. And we're going to find this to be more and more of an issue as time goes on. But those are my reasons for not allowing those things on our devices. It's just an issue that I don't want to deal with personally and that need to be on our radar. We also have a big rise and struggle with scrupulosity in our community. So what is scrupulosity? So that this is an issue with, and it does have a tendency to happen in religious communities, where you become so fixated and focused and obsessed with being perfect and following all of the rules perfectly that you feel that you have no value, you feel broken, you feel unworthy if you ever make a mistake. This leads you to pretend to be perfect and obsessively perfect and to constantly be feeling bad about yourself. There's just been a big uptick in kids struggling with this. And part of it comes from not having a healthy understanding about the role that mistakes and learning, the important role that plays in helping us become who we need to be, and not having a healthy understanding of how it's okay to mess up, and we're here to mess up, and that we have people to help us, and that we can get better over time. So as parents, we need to make sure that our message is very clear that we do not love our children because of what they do. We just love them because we're their parents. And that we're here to help them with for as long as it takes them to figure out what they're trying to work on. We will love and support them no matter what. This leads into the final thing I wanted to bring up while we're still on this slide, which is our words and attitudes are going to have a major impact on whether our kids decide to trust us when they're going through their issues with sexual development or to avoid us. So if you are making unkind comments about different sexual minority groups, different things that kids are facing with their sexual curiosity, if you belittle them, if you freak out, if you shame them, you will not be a healthy resource for them to turn to when they have confusions or questions, because you've established yourself as the enemy, not as an ally. No, we're not perfect at this. I get it. Sometimes we freak out. We don't mean to. We don't handle things well. Just like with the scrupulosity for kids, we're going to mess up too. It's okay. But we do need to apologize, and we do need to do better. We need to admit when we make our own mistakes and do our best to be loving and respectful as we're discussing these things with our kids, to be loving and respectful of all people, because we don't know if secretly they might be harboring an issue that they just don't dare share with us because of some flippant remark we've made in the past. So please be aware of what you're saying so that you can be a safe place for your kids. I cannot stress that enough. It's very, very important. Teach your beliefs about sexuality. Teach what you believe. Don't just teach the dangers, teach the beauties of sexuality as well. And by all means, help your children learn to be respectful of all people, no matter what. Okay, let's get into our next thing. We'll get off my giant soapbox. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about why technology and sexuality go hand in hand. First, we need to understand the algorithm, which I'm sure many of you already do, but I wanted to just do a brief overview. When you're searching for something online, the internet, whatever search engine you're using, says, oh, this person is interested in this, so you'll see ads, videos, other resources frequently pop up on your screen about that thing that you searched for. So that is also true of things with the sexual nature. It's important to tell our kids that if they have questions about something about sex and they go on to YouTube or onto Google and they type their question in, that those images and videos will continue to come after them, even if they were like, oh no, I didn't really want to see that. And it can cause a lot of temptation and confusion for them. So we need to really stress that if they have questions about sex, which they will, that's normal and healthy and good, that we will help them. They can ask us. We are here for them. We also need to teach them about non-concordance. This is a term that I was made aware of several years ago, and basically it just means that you have a sexual response to something that makes you uncomfortable, or that you know that isn't something that you think is something that you believe to be wrong. And then your body has a sexual response to it. And you're like, what the heck does that mean? Does that mean I actually really like that? Because my body had a response to it. In my Before We Talk About Sex book, I have a whole lesson on teaching about non-concordance and how to teach it in terms that our kids can understand. Because the danger of searching for stuff online is that they're going to be frequently exposed to violence, all sorts of sexual practices that may be very far afield from what we feel is healthy and safe. But when they are exposed to sexual images, their body will have a sexual reaction. Just like when you are hungry, your body has a reaction to food being around, whether you like that food or not, or whether that food is healthy for you or not. So we need to help our children understand this and help them understand why it isn't safe to just be out searching for whatever online. We also need to make sure that we are spending time talking about screen safety standards in our home. It's not okay. It's not enough just to set some filters and call it a day. You need to have the conversations. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about the hows and what's of that here in just a minute. There's a really great resource from the Better Screen Time ladies. It's a book, and I will show you where you can find it on my resources page. And every time before one of my kids gets a phone, we spend a few weeks, it's usually in the summer, we'll have, like, during our family home evening lessons, we will just spend a little bit of time reviewing all of the rules that we have at our house around technology and why, so that everybody is clear on what and why. Everybody knows the expectations. Everybody knows the consequences. It's really important that as parents, we set that standard and continue to talk to our children about why that matters. Okay, lastly, we need to talk about the levels of pornography. This is based on an article that now President Oakes wrote back in 2015 when it was back the Ensign, entitled Recovering from the Trap of Pornography. And he reviews the 4 levels of pornography that we need to understand when we're teaching our children, so that we know how to approach helping them. Because if we label our child as a pornography addict when they are not one, that's going to do a lot more harm than good. So I wanted to review those here with you. And again, you can find them in my little Before We Talk About Sex book and for free on the church's website. Okay, level 1, inadvertent exposure. So this is when our kids aren't pursuing or looking to find pornography, but it's just popping up anyway, which it's after us, all of us. It's the most prevalent thing online, so it makes sense that it's going to be seen. This most frequently would happen to my kids when they were on their Chromebooks for school, and they'd be doing an assignment or playing some games or something on their computer, like if it was cold outside and they didn't go out for recess. And there would just be ads for games or something, or articles that would pop up, and it frequently would be a very scantily clad or immodest women. And they're not seeking that out. It's just coming up on their screen. Even though the school says they have their filters on, it just will come through. And my kids would just come home and be like, Mom, look, can you believe this came up on my screen today? This is so dumb. I don't even want to see this. Why is it coming up? That's kind of inadvertent use. Or they'll be at school and a buddy that has a phone will be like, look at this picture. And it's very inappropriate and they didn't want to see it, but they saw it anyway. Inadvertent use. The next is occasional use. So this is use that is intentional. Whether it's frequently or not very often, you're just kind of tempted to go look up some stuff, and it causes that big reaction, right? We have a physical reaction to sexual stimuli, and so it's tempting to seek it out. And this behavior makes them feel bad. They know they're not supposed to be doing it. They usually feel guilty about it. So the next level is intensive use. This is when they're seeking it out more and more frequently, and they need to look at it more and more to get that same dopamine hit that they got the first time they saw it. This then leads to level 4, which is compulsive use. So this is full porn addiction. It is an irresistible compulsion that they cannot walk away from. It starts to affect their relationships with their friends, their relationships in our home. They start to isolate themselves more. You see a difference in attitude and behavior and light. This is when they really can't stop on their own. We need to be aware of each of these levels and make sure that we're not freaking out and treating our kids like they have an addiction when they just might have some childhood curiosity. Do not put adult understanding on child curiosity. So how do we determine this? We are open with our kids. We ask lots of questions. We stay calm. We tell them how normal and natural it is to be curious about sex and sexuality, that it's an important part of who they are, and that they need to learn to have self-mastery of who they are in all areas of their life, including sexual self-mastery. We continue to have these conversations so that we can gauge where they're at over time and get a good beat on exactly how we should be helping them. Sometimes it's beyond what we ourselves know how to address, and that's where there are so many addiction recovery helps for adults and teens out there. And there's also resources to help our kids have conversations with our kids about what, when, how, all those important things. utilize those resources. So let's talk about what some of them are and the age ranges where we can be introducing these concepts and attitudes as we're trying to teach our kids about developing healthy sexuality. So we start young. This is not a one-time conversation when they're 15. At the age of 2 to 5, we start talking about sexual safety. We start sharing books with them about how awesome bodies are. We start singing songs about safety. So when I was little, there was this wonderful thing from Bright Music called The Safety Kids. Highly recommend them. You can still get them today, the songs. When we drive around town, we listen to them. And there was one about knowing your phone number. We also made up a song about learning their address. There was also a song about what to do if like a stranger gets you. And I wanted to share this song with you. It will be linked in the description box. I think this is a brilliant song that this kindergarten teacher taught to her class. Maybe you've seen it.
These are my private parts, private parts, private parts. These are my private parts. No one should touch them. No one should squeeze them. And if you touch my private parts, private parts, private parts. And if you touch my private parts, I will tell my mother. I will tell my father. I will tell my teacher. This.
Okay, clearly she feels very passionately about this. I'll link that in the description box so you can memorize it and teach it to your preschool kids. You could tell with her mannerisms that this was not a cute little happy, this is like a aggressive, do not touch me, that is not appropriate song. And that they know what to do. They tell their mother, they tell their father, they tell their teacher if someone touches their private parts. These little things that we do help empower our kids so that when they're in situations that make them feel afraid or unsafe, they know, number one, that we will help them because we've already been talking to them about these things. And number two, that they can stand up for themselves and say, that's not okay. Another really important concept that we cannot miss at this age is making sure we focus in our homes and when we have conversations with them that our bodies are amazing instruments. They are not ornaments. Their whole rest of their lives, especially if they're a woman or a little girl, they will be told that their value comes from the way they look. As parents, it is vitally important that we teach them that they are amazing just because of who they are and that their body is amazing because of all the wonderful things it can do. So we need to check ourselves in our own attitudes in our homes. When we compliment their cute little shapes, got off on how cute they look, how pretty they are, what a cute outfit they're wearing. Now we can say those things, but if that's the only thing we're ever noticing them about them is their looks, that's a really confusing message. We need to be talking to them about how they don't give up when things are hard. We need to make sure we thank them when they are kind, when they are helpful, when they are honest, when they learn a new skill like tying their shoes or playing a sport, when they are interested in trying to read or any good thing that they're trying to do with their body. That is where their value lies. Their value is in who they are and the good they are doing. It has nothing to do with what they look like because they will be hearing that message constantly forevermore. So please stand against that and be very careful as parents that you're not constantly building up them about how awesome their bodies are, but then they hear you always complaining about yours. That is a very loud message that is hard to tune out. And I think a lot of us as women know what I'm talking about. When we would hear our mothers complain about things about their bodies and look at ourselves and realize that was an issue that we had too. And it was just this really loud message in our ears about how we weren't enough. So please, please do not focus on looks. Focus on who we are and how awesome the gift of a body is. All right, last thing we need to focus on in this age. Emotional regulation. So one of the biggest issues with putting screens in front of our kids' faces all the time is that they never learn how to self-soothe. They never learn how to let their minds wander when they're bored or utilize their creativity in these spaces because there's always a distraction placed in front of them. And then as teens and adults, when they face hard choices, difficult relationships, any kind of hard situation, instead of having the confidence to move through that and address it head on, or allow themselves the space to feel those negative emotions so that they can then move forward, they simply turn to a screen to block out all negative emotion. This especially can be harmful in leading to pornography addiction because a lot of people use that addiction to cover up their emotional challenges that they've never learned how to deal with because there's always a screen in front of their face. So we need to teach them how to handle their big emotions. No emotion is wrong. Every emotion is fine, but not every behavior is fine. And I'm gonna show you a few of the resources that I've used or where you can find links to them as I've tried to teach those things to my kids. Okay. Let's talk about ages 5 to 10. So this is when we start to create that tech family plan, talk about pornography prevention. Before my kids start kindergarten, we read the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures book. And again, I'll show you where you can find a link to all of these things we're going to talk about. And we make a plan for what they need to do when they see those images, either a friend showing them, seeing them online, what they need to do. We also do not ever have screens in bedrooms, and we have some pretty strict rules about when screens can be used and when they cannot. And I want to show this awesome video that maybe some of you have seen, but it just kind of helps you get a reset on why this matters.
Hey kiddo, it's about time for bed, okay?
Okay.
Well, remember, there's a box in the corner over there with all the pornographic material that's ever been made in the world, even the really weird stuff that could scar you for life. I'm trusting you not to look in there, okay?
Okay.
Feelings are for losers.
Oh, and this guy's gonna be in your corner all night just randomly spewing out hateful things. Just ignore him, okay? While I'm thinking of it, there's an order form on your desk where you can purchase illegal drugs. The mean girls from your school are gonna be standing there talking about you all night. And this Russian hacker's gonna keep asking for your password.
I'm not a hacker. Amazon customer service.
Just need you to ignore him, okay?
Love you, buddy. We ask too much of our kids when we give them a smartphone. Let's change the norm. Together.
Maybe we go around the room and share social security numbers.
Join the movement at smartphonefreechildhoodus.com.
I'll get it anyway.
Okay. I just feel like that video should be shouted from the rooftops all the time. We are asking our kids to carry far heavier burdens than they are ready for. Do not force them into situations that they are not ready for because of the small little chance of having things be more convenient does not outweigh all the challenges that they will be faced with instead. That's linked in the description box as well. When you need a reminder for when they give you pushback, you could watch that together. We're going to go to the next one, which is that emotional regulation from when we were talking about when they were younger. I feel like there is a ton of hormonal changes happening right before they actually get into puberty. A lot of things happened between like 3rd and 5th grade emotionally with each of my kids. There's this really great book series called the What to Do Guidebooks for Kids, and it's on the resources page that I'll show you at the end. I just got them all from the library. They go through every scenario you can think of. If you're having a hard time falling asleep at night, if you feel angry all the time, if you worry too much. I mean, there's probably 12 different subjects. And we would just reread them and go over them all the time to help my kids learn healthy techniques to learn what to do when they feel strong emotions. It's such an important thing to be teaching them at these ages. And then especially staying vigilant as their bodies are starting to change with how cool bodies are and how our value does not come from our looks. All right, next age. This is where we're going to be getting into teaching about puberty, maturation, dating, sex, pregnancy, all the things. I'll show you on the resources page some of the books that I've used in the past that have been really wonderful resources. When I teach my kids about these things, I teach about boys and girls to each one. They need to understand how this is affecting everybody and that it's normal for everybody and that it's cool. We usually start talking about it when they're 10, before all of it hits, so that when it does start to hit, they can come and be like, okay, mom, this is happening. Oh, I saw this. Or if they're like really emotional, they don't understand why, we'll be like, hormones. And they'll be like, hormones. And they just hug me and cry. It's okay. But we've established that that's normal and it feels far less scary. This is where we start teaching about self-mastery in all areas of our lives. So we talk about emotional self-mastery, physical self-mastery. So that means like eating nutritious food, the importance of exercise, the importance of getting enough sleep and why that matters, the importance of drinking water instead of soda and eating junk food, talking about being a good friend, being a good student, why education matters, talking about saving money. All of these things we're teaching our kids, right? We also need to teach about sexual self-mastery and how as they're developing some of these strong sexual feelings and curiosity, that is so normal, but that they need to learn how to have self-mastery of it, just like they have to have self-mastery in all areas of their life. So we talk about the risks of social media, of sexting, of why we have our text rules at home. And we are talking about this all the time, asking questions, having conversations about it. So it's so normal for them to just ask a question when they have it, because they know that we're not going to freak out. We're going to stay calm. And if we don't know the answer to something, we will find out for them. And we're happy to talk to them about it. Now, this is the time where we use the Better Screen Time assessment on, is your child ready for a cell phone? We start giving them that assessment around 13, 14. They still don't get a phone until they're 16, but it helps them see the areas they need to work on. Things like if you can't keep your room clean, if you can't be respectful and helpful in your home, if you aren't a responsible student, then you're probably not ready and mature enough for a cell phone. And it helps them see that it's not coming from me. So I like that. And then we talk about our reasonings for why they don't get a phone at 16 until they're 16, to help them deal with some of that peer pressure. And we help them work through that. Everybody's family gets to make their own plan. That's just the plan that we made in our home. We also need to remember that you cannot be relying on digital filters alone in this age range. This is where all of that hormonal puberty storm hits them. You need to be having these conversations frequently and calmly. You need to be that resource for them so that they just know that it's okay to talk to you about it. Okay, let's go to our next one. Once they turn 16, this is a place, usually around 15, there's this great resource we use called Dating Academy, where we talk through different scenarios for dating. We teach them about consent and why consent matters. And we talk to them about our dating standards for their relationships. Once your kids turn 16, I mean, they really are on their own, doing their own thing. And you hope that it's been enough that you've taught up until this point. You cannot do too much teaching and preparing up to this point. At this point in my experience, it's just been my role to listen and guide when they ask questions and to be stable and supportive for them through their big emotions as they're trying to navigate all of this. We also spend a lot of time focusing on making sure they have balance in their lives and making sure that they are thriving in the real world and giving them opportunities to do so. So, continuing that self-assessment from Better Screen Time, which again, I'll show you the links to all these resources later, and making sure that in our communicating, we're focusing on how people are not objects. They deserve to be loved and respected and seen. These are things we're focusing on as they're 16 and above and preparing for adulthood. Okay. I'm going to skip over this for just a second and take you to the timelines for this stuff that we were just talking about. So on the resources page of the website uncommonsensebooks.com, I have all the links to every article, book, podcast, video that has been a wonderful resource for my own family and the other families that I worked with over these last 20 years in helping them have these discussions with their kids. So under the Before We Talk About Sex heading, this is every single resource that you can get onto and look into. You can find all of them, 90% of them, for free at your local library, or you can look them up online. These are books, songs, activities, and lessons that I have used to teach my own kids about healthy sexuality. You can also find the list of all of them in detail in the Before We Talk About Sex book that is also on. I'll show you where that is here on the website. But I wanted to bring your attention to, if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed and you don't really quite know how to get started, down here at the bottom of this resource list, I made an entire playlist on teaching sexuality, divine sexuality, to our kids. It's on the Uncommon Sense Books YouTube channel, and it's just in this playlists Before We Talk About Sex. There are parent guides to all of them that you can watch beforehand as you're preparing, and then each video is pretty short, between 6 and 10 minutes, maybe is the longest one. And they have questions and discussion questions you can be asking each other, things that you can talk about just to help you get started. Now, keep in mind, this is from my faith perspective as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it's going to have a lot of doctrine and lessons from the scriptures and leaders that we have in our church. So you may need to modify that for your own beliefs, because I can only teach from what I believe, but they are definitely a help in getting you started in knowing the conversations you need to be having with your kids around this topic. I just wanted you to be aware of that resource. They're totally free, and they're meant to just help you get started when you don't quite know where to get started. I also just have a lot of options for the books. You can either get the actual physical book, but there's an ebook version, there's an audio book version if you just want to listen to it while you drive around town, just to help you get started. The Before We Talk About Sex book is definitely there to support parents in having these conversations with their kids and to know the how, when, what, and why of doing that. There's little pages inside for you to write notes that pertain to your own individual family and make a plan just for you. So I just wanted to bring your attention to, that's where all the resources are, and you can get them for free at your library. That's what I did with my kids growing up. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that I left enough time to answer some of your questions. So I'm going to get on and look through the list really quick, and we'll just select as many as we can get to before our time runs out. Okay, so give me just a minute to look through these. Take a minute maybe to write down some notes while we get ready for our question and answer section. Okay. All right. Let's dive into some of these. And thank you, everybody, for keeping everything so respectful and anonymous in your questions. You did a really great job. A+. All right. So here's the first one. It says, my kids are older. So it doesn't say specifically their ages, older now, and I've never had these conversations with them. Where do I start? First of all, please, this seminar is not meant to make you feel guilty or that you are falling short. It is to just let you know that you need to have these conversations whenever you have them. If your children are still young and you're able to start now, great. If they're older, start where they are now. Just start talking to them about it. And like I said, you can start with those family home evening lessons if you want to. And then that kind of can lead to some discussion and you can get a good beat on where they are and what they need help with. You'll find that some may be struggling, especially if they're spending a lot of time on digital devices without supervision and you haven't been talking about this. You can pretty much assume that they've been exposed to some things and that they're going to have some questions for you. And if they know that you're willing to talk about it and you're willing to help them, and you can just stay calm and positive and let them know how normal they are and how normal it is to have questions about sex and sexuality and that you want to help them, and you just keep checking in and talking with them about it, it will become more comfortable over time and they will know that you're a safe place to turn to where they can talk. So whatever age your child is, go through the proper thing for each age group and just start having the conversations. Start asking questions, not to blame them, not to scare them, but to help them know that you're there. You're there for them as a resource and that you love them and you want to help them. Just start. Start where you are. All right, let's go to the next one. This says, I was sexually assaulted as a child. That is a really sad reality for a lot of young girls and even some young boys as well. Children being assaulted or molested is a major issue in today's society and something we don't talk about enough. And so we need to make sure that we are mindful of that as parents, and also that we are open in appropriate ways with our children about some of these risks and what they can do to protect themselves. So this is, how do I make sure this won't happen to my own kids while also not living in constant fear? That's good. That's a really good question. Okay, so number one, having conversations with your kids so that they know what to do if they're ever in a situation where they feel unsafe, and letting them know that you are in their corner and will help them is the number one thing that you can do. Also, as they're getting older and as you feel it is appropriate, and in the way that you feel is appropriate to share with them and that they could handle, being open with them about your experience could actually be very helpful. I remember when I was growing up, we had the rule that we could not have sleepovers. And sometimes I would push back against that, and I wondered why. And when I got a little bit older, my mom shared with me that she knew someone who actually was a friend of mine who went to a sleepover when she was in high school, and she was raped at the sleepover. And so she just decided that she's not going to put any of her kids in that situation. And we just kind of talked about what happened to her and how it affected her and how my mom didn't want that to happen to any of us. And it just helped me understand the rule better and helped me understand why she had the rule and why it was in place, and it was there to protect me. We cannot control what happens outside the walls of our own homes, but we can make sure that we're having these discussions and giving our kids the tools they need to handle them. We also have like a family safe word. So if our kids are at a friend's house or with a group of people and they feel unsafe or uncomfortable, they can just call or send a text that says that specific phrase or word in it, and we know to just call them and be like, oh, we need to come pick you up. Sorry, you can't stay. And we just go get them out of that situation. Just them knowing that that's a thing. And you're probably thinking, well, how do they do that if they don't have a phone? They don't have one, but everybody else around them does, and they have our number memorized. So that's how that works out. But just letting them know that you are there for them, and you're there to keep them safe, and that they can turn to you if they need you, is enough to help them feel empowered about how they can move forward when they're in those situations where they feel unsafe. I'm trying to think of something else that might help you. Just making sure that you listen to your mom radar. So there have been certain situations where my kids have wanted to go spend time at a certain friend's house or do a certain activity, and I just had a really bad feeling about it. And I have just learned to trust that feeling, and my kids have learned to trust that feeling. I don't use it flippantly. I don't use it in a way to control. And I've taught them to trust their gut too. If they have a bad feeling about something, or they're in a situation where their gut is just telling them it's not safe, they need to listen to that feeling and get out of there. So those are some of the things that might help you moving forward. Educating them, communicating with them, teaching them how to trust their gut, and then explaining to them why you have the rules that you have and what to do when they're in situations where they're nervous. I hope that answered your question. Okay, this is a good one too. You guys are all over the gamut here, which is great. How do I know if my child is interested in sex or not, or like curious in sex or not? I'm guessing that's probably what they meant. And how will I know when they are ready to begin these conversations? Okay, I'm going to split these up a little bit. Number one, how to know if they're curious about it or not. So once you start talking to them, especially if you're kind of just having a family group discussion about some aspects of healthy sexuality, you will find that some are just fascinated by it and think they just want to learn everything they can, and some could care less. And it's fine, it's normal. However they are is fine. You also are going to have some that are very open from the get-go and like talking about it and just have questions, and they just naturally come and want to have these discussions. And you have some that maybe have that curiosity, but they wait a while to come talk to you. And maybe you're not going to know until they actually come talk to you. The only thing you have control over is what you're doing on your end, meaning you are talking about it in normal and natural ways. You are asking them questions about it. You are letting them know that you think it's normal and fine to have these discussions, and that you want to help them however you can. And that if they ever have a question, they can talk to you. And that when you respond in calm curiosity, when they come with a question, you teach them that you're safe. So that's the only thing you have control over. How they want to engage, I guess, in that relationship with those questions is kind of up to them. And they'll learn over time. It will evolve over time. But I will say this, and this kind of goes to the next question. How will I know when they're ready to begin these conversations? So several years ago, before this crazy digital boom that we are living in now, you could kind of wait. You could wait till they started asking questions, or when they got around maturation time or something, to have these questions or to have these discussions. Now you kind of have to preemptively prepare them in the way that is age appropriate for them. And that's kind of what we went over in that last slide. You need to start having these conversations with them, whether they are expressing interest or not, simply because whether they are curious about it or not, they're going to be exposed to it. There's just no question. When I think over the years that my kids, so their span is like from 12 to 21. So that was a big span of elementary experience when I think of all the different ways that they were exposed to sexual ideas, pornography, inappropriate things being talked about on the bus and the school and at school, like, or even with their friend groups, they weren't seeking any of that out. It all just came to them. And because we were already having those conversations in our home, they could come home and just talk to me about it. And we just made a plan and talked about it. Not because they were interested in it, but because they were forced into it. So you just do need to start having these conversations. And again, don't throw heavily sexual things at them when they're too young for it, but talking about private parts, talking about sexual safety, talking about what's okay to talk about and what's not, making sure they understand puberty and maturation and sex as they get a little bit older. So when they hear some of these things, it rings like, oh, that's not right, or they shouldn't be talking about that, because they already know, because you've already taught them. It's already a comfortable thing that they feel confidently educated in. Just prepare them. Okay, last one. Okay. I don't know if I want to answer this, but here we go. All of my kids' friends have phones. I'm sure a lot of you are in this situation. And they also are having regular sleepovers. Okay. I recognize the risks, but I don't want my child to be left out. So sorry, they put what their child was, but I'm not going to say. I don't want my child to be left out, because they don't want him to be the weird kid out. I get it. Peer pressure doesn't end once we leave school age, right? Adults feel pressure by what other families around them are doing, and what the other kids in the neighborhood are doing. And there are a lot of adults who almost live their social lives vicariously through their children. That is just a decision you are going to have to make on your own. After 20 years of navigating this and helping other people navigate this, it's just not even a temptation to me. I wouldn't put my kids in that situation. And they're surrounded by phones all the time. All their friends have them, so they're not really missing out. They're still listening to the songs, looking at the memes, seeing the reels. And that's another reason we have to talk about it all the time, because they're being exposed to stuff inadvertently all the time because of what their friend groups or school groups are looking at. It has not negatively impacted any of their friendships or social relationships. And even my 16-year-old, when he didn't have a phone in high school, he was the only one in his class that didn't have one. And he navigated it just fine. And after he got one, and now that he's in his 20s, he says to me frequently, I'm so glad that I didn't have one until I was older. Like, it was a huge blessing for him. That's just your own call. You get to decide how you want to navigate that. And there are a lot of people who it's worth it. It's worth it for them to have a device. With work situations, friend situations, childcare, it just makes sense. But there's so many ways you can go about it that are smart, that don't add these risks to your kids. And you're going to need to make sure you're having a lot more frequent conversations and check-ins and discussions. You're just going to have to be super vigilant about it. And just know that they're probably going to be exposed to some stuff that might be hard for them to navigate. I guess but they'll be okay. A lot of kids get through it just fine. For me, it just wasn't worth it, for me and for my family. But you get to decide that for you and what's best for your family. But I would definitely make sure if you're going to have your child have a phone from a young age, that you either use one of those like Gab phones that's very minimalist in what they can utilize, or like the watch, or that you're very strict with the things that they allow on there, and that you are having questions at least weekly, maybe even daily, about how it's impacting them so that you're aware. Oh, we're almost out of time. So we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have some questions that weren't addressed here, and you like some one-on-one guidance, you can get on the website and schedule a guidance session with me. There's a little intake form here down at the bottom, and I can help you work through any questions or concerns that you have that you need a little extra perspective on. I am not a therapist or a psychiatrist. I am just a mom who's had a lot of experience in helping people navigate having these kind of discussions and creating these kind of standards in their home to help keep their kids safe as they're learning to be healthy and independent and well-adjusted, balanced adults. So thank you again for spending time with me today. It was wonderful to have you here. Thank you for your insightful questions. And again, please check the description box for links to everything we discussed today. And have a wonderful rest of your week. See ya.